Hey everyone, this is Roman Polnar. We're going to cover the importance of financial aid forms. So glad that you made it this far. It's only going to get easier from here on. So let's talk about what forms you're going to need to complete, when you need to complete them, and how to complete them correctly. And this is another important step that some parents miss because they don't realize its importance or impact on their financial aid awards. And in doing so, they make the common mistakes that can hurt them down the road. And you especially don't want to make these mistakes because everything you've learned up to this point can be lost if you skip or don't do the step correctly. So grab your pen and paper and let's talk about financial aid forms. The first thing you need to know about is that there are two most important financial aid forms. The form that everyone is going to need to complete is called the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. I know that's a mouthful. It's just called the FAFSA for short. The second financial aid form that some private colleges use is called the College Scholarship Search Profile. Everyone just calls it the CSS Profile or just Profile. Now, the purpose of these two forms is to collect your financial information and calculate the amount that your family should pay for college. Now, that number is your expected family contribution, or EFC. Now, as a reminder, is the minimum amount of money that you'll be expected to pay out of your pocket. And look, if you took all of the earlier advice I gave you to organize your finances and pick the right colleges, you will start seeing the benefits of doing all of this in this step right here. Because once you submit those financial aid forms, you can start getting the money from the financial aid system. So, how do you report them correctly? Let's dive right in. First off, there are nearly 18 million families that fill out the FAFSA every single year. And every year, most of them will make the same mistakes because the FAFSA doesn't come with really good instructions. And these mistakes can lead to lower financial aid awards, meaning less money for people to send their kids to college. So let's talk about the top 5 things you need to do on the FAFSA to get it done just right so you can get more financial aid. The first thing I want to talk about are these 5 things, and then we'll dive into more detail and explore each one individually. So the first thing is report net numbers. Secondly, report numbers on the day that you actually send in your forms. Number 3, remember, don't report values of exempt accounts. Number 4, submit your forms as soon as possible. And number 5, check, and triple check everything to make sure that it was processed correctly. All right, let's break these down one by one. The first one is, what does it mean to actually report net numbers? The FAFSA doesn't tell you this, but you don't need to report the total number that you see on your statements or on the computer screen. Instead, you want to subtract all costs and all debts that you might have on those accounts if you sold everything. So just imagine if you had an investment account, if you sold it, how much money would you have left in cash? That's the net number, and that's the number that you want to report. So, for example, if you're reporting the value of a bank account, obviously it's the same as cash. But if you're reporting a value of an investment account, subtract all taxes, fees, and any loans that you might have if you sold everything. Now, again, this doesn't mean you actually have to sell anything. You just estimate what you would be left with if you did sell it, and that's the number. Now, what if you own real estate, like a second home or a rental property? Those are all considered to be regular investments by the financial aid forms. So when you're filling out the value of those assets, don't just look on Zillow. Subtract your mortgages. Subtract realtor fees that you'd have to pay if you sold the house. Subtract any taxes that you might pay to the IRS or state taxes. Subtract any other expenses that would need to be paid if you were to sell that property. How much actual cash will you have left? And that's the number that you put on the form. So whatever the thing, just remember that the total number you see on the statement is always going to be higher than the actual cash value you would get if you sold it. And that is the number, the cash value number, the net number that you want to put on the financial aid forms. So the takeaway from step number 1 is that less is more. This is not the time to brag and over-report your finances. Record net values of your savings and you will qualify yourself for more aid. Okay, number 2, report values on the day you actually hit send and submit your financial aid forms. Look, if you're like most, your checking account probably goes up and down every single month. You have money coming in, and then you have money going out in expenses during the course of the month. The same thing happens with investments that you probably have. Accounts go up and down in value based upon whatever the stock market is doing. So don't make the mistake of reporting the high watermark numbers of whatever accounts you're talking about. Wait until expenses clear your checking account before you report the lower, more accurate average balance. The same thing with investments. If it's going up and down, you might want to time it when the values are down so that that's the day that you submit the financial aid forms. Also, if you have upcoming expenses, see if you can prepay them and clear the money out of your checking account before submitting the forms. Maybe you have tax payments, a medical bill, a tuition bill, credit cards, or maybe a home project that you've been thinking about. You get the point. If you have money to prepay those bills, then lower the amount of money that you're reporting on the financial aid forms is a good thing, and it's going to help lower your expected family contribution. All right, number 3. Don't put down exempt savings. We talked about this in the prior videos. The FAFSA does not count the value of your primary home, retirement accounts, life insurance, small business, or personal items like cars, jewelry, art, things like that. So don't put them down. But the CSS profile is different, so you need to plan ahead. Here are the differences. While your primary home is not included on the FAFSA, the profile will ask for it, and some colleges will count the value as a personal asset. Traditional retirement accounts don't count on either form, but the profile might include some annuities as part of their calculation, so be careful before you follow some insurance or financial advisor's advice who tell you to shelter money in annuities. It doesn't always work. The same thing is true with life insurance. Be wary when someone tells you to put money into a life insurance policy just to hide it from the financial aid formula. It's true, the FAFSA does not look at life insurance, but most private colleges that use the CSS profile will. And you don't want to get stuck owning something that's not going to work well for you down the road. There's a difference also with small businesses. If you're a business owner and you employ less than 100 employees, the FAFSA does not count the value at all, even if you have cash in business accounts. It's also exempt because, well, it's owned by the business. And this is a really powerful planning tool for business owners. But colleges that use the CSS profile will ask about the value of your business and all of the savings and checking accounts as part of your personal assets when calculating your ability to pay for college. And then lastly, personal items don't count on either form, so that's a big bonus. Again, when filling out financial aid forms, remember that less is more. The goal here is not to brag and tell the financial aid system how well you're doing. You don't want to lie. You want to be honest. You want to play by the rules, and knowing the rules of the game will help you. All right, let's talk about the next thing. Number 4. Timing is very, very important in financial aid forms because most colleges award financial aid on a first-come, first-served basis, especially the best debt-free financial aid. So don't delay and get your forms submitted as early as possible. Now, here are some important dates you should keep in mind. Both financial aid forms become available on October 1st when your kids are seniors in high school. And while the official federal deadline is not until June 30th of the next calendar year, you never, ever want to wait this long because colleges and states have their own deadlines, which are almost always earlier, and you should check to know what they are. But no less importantly, remember, you'll be competing with 18 million other families lining up for financial aid. So get in line as early as you can. Don't wait until those deadlines. And now for the last point about forms, number 5. Check, and check again. Here's a simple way to know what to check for. Number 1, check that you did everything correctly before actually submitting the form and going on record. Then once you submit, check that it was processed, and then check that it was processed correctly. Look, I hope you found this training to be helpful.